Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the November 15, 2023 Licensed Site Professional Board meeting. This meeting is being recorded. I am Millie Garcia Serrano, serving as the Acting Executive Director of the Licensed Site Professional Board. As always, the board encourages interactive participation, and to that end, I also encourage everybody who's participating on this meeting in a virtual manner to kindly please consider turning your camera on, as well as ensure that your cell phones are on silence mode or vibrate. I will now proceed with a roll call to establish who from the board is participating in today's meetings and also to confirm quorum. So Gail Batchelder.
Yes, I'm here.
Kirk Franklin.
Kirk is not online.
Okay. Patrick Herring. I think he has ascertained that he was not available today. Okay. David Austin.
Yes.
Jamie Smith. Kathy Campbell. Okay. Greg McBride.
Yes.
Paul McKinley.
Yep.
Craig Ellis.
Yep.
Okay, so we are short one.
Kathy.
And Kathy ascertained that she would be participating, so we may have to just pause the meeting until we have that board member.
Oh, Kathy is logged on. Can you give her a minute? She's here.
Okay, Kathy, can you respond as to whether you're here or not here?
I am present.
Thank you, Kathy, much appreciated. All right, so with that, we have established quorum. We can move forward with our meeting this morning. Thank you very much. Let's see. So we're calling this meeting to order. Excuse me, Chris, in addition to everybody who's from the board, can you also read who is attending from members of the public?
Yes, we have. Where is my pop-up? There we are. Online, we have Diane Baxter, Kristen Lefebvre, and Michelle Zelch. And for staff, we have Jonah Cucci is on, Nancy Fitzpatrick, and Ann Lowry.
Perfect. And also with us as a member of the public, Maricel Serrano. Very good. I am calling this meeting to order. This is the Regulations Committee, and I'm calling this meeting to order at 10:04 a.m. And on the agenda, we wanted to talk about committee membership. Recall that in the past, we as board members, well, when I was the chair, I consider myself part of that group where I could vote. I don't vote anymore. We were working together on all those regulations. Clearly, there's a need to have all those regulations in one format, red line strikeout. The good news is that after this meeting, we will be disseminating the red line strikeout version that will basically represent what is an attestation of what we understand are all of the changes, inclusions, deletions, amendments, etc., as they pertain to the compendium of our regulations in draft form, but very, very draft form, because recall that during the advent of that process, we also had the ASILA component, which has been a blessing for the board. So there are a few sections, particularly section 2, that basically harken upon the need to update and modernize those regulations to reflect the ASILA portal. So therefore, I wanted to establish we had
Someone has
Yeah, someone.
If you don't mind just muting your camera, phone, computer, that would be fantastic so we can avoid the echo. Okay, seems like that problem resolved itself. So we just wanted to confirm that all these board members right here are part of the regulations committee. As I stated, you will be receiving the draft of that red line strikeout version. And because of the new MCP, the Mass Contingency Plan, as we know, that set of regulations has been updated. It's been promulgated with an effective date of March 1st, 2024. We also wanted to include John Fitzgerald from the Northeast region to also be part of the regs, LSP board reg changes in the event that there's anything that he sees that it's imperative that we also include. So we have John Fitzgerald, Chris Borges, and also Jonah Cucci, our EEA ASILA program manager. She will also be joining in to assist and help with finalization of these regs. We request that all these board members review this set of regulations over the next couple of weeks ahead. I want to take the pulse on predicated following your receipt of these red line strikeout versions. Let me know how you feel about having maybe some kind of getting together in December. I know it's busy with the holidays, but it actually is a good month for the board to kind of work on non-programmatic things. We can work on the XCM committee. We can work on things that are germane to the regulations committee. So predicated on at least sort of, just putting eyeballs on the document, making sure that you feel like all your comments were incorporated, or, just new revelations that during the course of our proceedings, you may discover that there's some efficiency to be gained. I want to hear those comments from you. So, the board will be checking in with you in a few weeks, and if you feel like it's possible to move forward with the regulations committee, then we would need to actually know at least a week that it's a public meeting. We need to go to the Secretary of State's office and post it, etc. We could probably do this virtually. So that's just an option for y'all to think about. I also think that we were hoping to put a little bit of finality with the online portal language and the requirements. I think that's really where we never got into it, because we learned about ASILA close to summertime. And I know those changes, we did not go over those changes in prior meetings. So that's going to be a special interest area for you to focus on. If it says fax to the board, no, we don't want faxes anymore, those kinds of things. So, just catching up.
Just are we convinced that we've gotten all the edits that had been done?
So we're not convinced.
Okay.
We're not convinced, but I can.
Because I thought there was still some open.
Yeah, there were some. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be, as you all know, I'm really excited about going through this entire compendium of regulations. I mean, hopefully it reads like a book.
One place, one time.
One place, one time, which is what we always wanted. So this is it. And I do have to say special thanks to Matt. Matt actually went line by line and reconstructed this document that we will be advancing after this meeting. So I just want to say special thanks to Matt for all endeavoring on a product that is ready and available for us to even manipulate need be. We can think about maybe sharing it in SharePoint. Maybe it's something that we can do, offsite comments and, treat it as one master document. What we need to figure out also is, and I think to that end, Ann Lowry, who's here with us this morning, she can kind of give us a guidance roadmap as to how this document is going to navigate internally to government, and then getting it out there to the public forum for public meetings or public hearings. So we need to have those proceedings also. So I think time is of the essence in terms of getting in line with many sets of regulations that need to navigate through a lengthy process that I think predicated on how controversial or not navigate upward at a little bit better fast pace. So we just need to coordinate that. Any other comments, questions? This has to do, again, just clarifying that the committee membership is all of us plus a few more. Regulations, duration, status, and next steps. This is where we are. And David, you have a question?
A question and comment. So we're going to get a copy of the regs, the entire regs, red line strikeout?
Correct.
Okay. All I can say is that I think it's going to be a small updated relative to the reg changes and electronic portal, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I would love to just get these done and out of this board and on the road to public comment and all that stuff, because it's been kicking around for so long. I mean, this presentation about what we need to do, I think I've heard 3 times now.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah,
nothing against folks here and the staff and
Yeah.
the people who are presenting,
Yeah.
but that's how long it's been. And
Yeah.
I would love to get it out of this board.
My
Yeah.
entire tenure.
yeah,
And I think we're close. And
yeah,
if
I
we
think so
focused
too.
on it, once a month and, or whatever, we can get done.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for your patience. I do want to say that we have new staff members that are not familiar with the process and that there is a process.
I understand.
Yeah, and secondly, some, Patrick Heron's not here, I know, so we'll talk to him separate apart. I know he had an interest in understanding how this navigates. But in any event, we also need to establish how we involve the public. And, we have executive orders that point to the need be translation of some pieces. So there is a little bit of a process now to ensure that there is robust engagement with the affected public. And we also have some associations like the LSP Association that in the past has rendered comments. And I want to ensure that that association and any association or entity that has an interest, vested interest in commenting, has the ability to do so. So, but I'm with you 1,000%, David. I want to get that out, and it would be a nice milestone to be reached. Terrific. So along those lines, why don't we then have, do you know if Jonah is online?
Jonah is on the.
Is online? Okay. All righty, perfect. So why don't we just then go to Jonah, and then we'll go to Anne. And Jonah is the Acela program manager. She has been providing us with ePlace Acela portal updates since the summertime. We're very grateful to have Jonah. So if you don't mind, Jonah, just please make an appearance and give us your update.
Okay, hi, good morning, everyone. Okay, so I'll just provide a quick update of what we've been working on in regards to licensing for LSP. So I'm going to start by saying, so the first step was, we started this exercise back in August, linking for all LSPs to link their authorization, their apartment fee licenses into the Acela. And then so far we're 80% of the LSPs have already linked. That's the data I have. And then the rest, the 20%, we're working on reaching out individually to all of them and helping them through the process. And that's going pretty well. Our goal is to have all LSPs linked into the Acela by December 31st, because that kicks off the first annual fees online process starting January 1st. So that's our goal, and we're working on that one and helping, the LSP staff as well through this process. And then the other update is the first exam cycle through the online system was completed. We had the exams last week or the week before, whatever. Time flies. So those have completed in the system as well. So that first cycle went well. No issues reported successfully. And then what we're working on next is the annual fees, which are coming up for January 1st. So right now we're working with staff to complete the process, what it looks like, all notifications, and just finalizing that online. And then so come January, the annual fees will not be invoiced manually anymore and not mailed out. That's going to be an online process. The system will send notification, notify all the LSPs, and the payment could be done online. So that's the next step we're working and focusing on, and also, the next renewal cycle, which comes in January as well. So those are updates. I'll take any questions.
I'm just going to leave this webinar. I'm sorry, it's imparting a little. Sorry, Jonah.
No worries, there was a little bit of an echo coming.
Okay, go ahead, Jonah.
So So I was just saying if anybody has any questions or needs any clarification on, what we're working on or what's coming next as it pertains to the licensing part.
Yeah, I would be curious to hear from members of the board who are licensed site professionals as to how this is working in terms of ASILA, feedback, comment from your colleagues, yourselves included.
Not much yet, we registered, right? But I'll be interested, so when the renewal period and when we're paying it, online, sounds like 20% yet haven't signed up. How are we gonna manage that if folks aren't?
Yeah.
They won't be paying.
They won't be paid, won't get their renewal, or, is that,
Right.
is that we're gonna proceed, or are we gonna do one round with paper for those that aren't doing it electronically, or?
Right. So Jonah, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I
on that?
can answer that question. So 20% that haven't linked yet to be online, and they get notification, right? We notify users every week. And just so you know, for the outreach, what we did is we first reached out to all the folks that their renewals was upcoming. So they had, their renewals. Basically, the first set of group was the October 30th expiration. So we made sure we reached out to those folks and made sure they were linked so they could complete the renewal and all of that. So we're kind of going by the expiration date, and as folks now, they're remaining, their expiration dates are in the future. We're talking about like 2 years out. So there's no concern there. Right now, our outreach is mostly to make sure that they're linked. So when it comes to the annual fees for January, they have the option to go into the online system and make those payments accordingly. So we're not so worried about folks that are not, linked part to the renewal. We're, we constantly are watching the system, making sure, if there's things, coming up for them, we'll reach out to them directly and make sure they're linked and they're all set in the system. So we're working on that outreach. So far, we haven't had any issues and people have been responsive. So it's been pretty good.
Has there a notification gone out for the annual fee yet? I mean, we're coming up on year's end.
It's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's going to be the first, right? The January 1st. That comes out during January 1st for the annual.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think the takeaway message is that we need all the licensed site professionals to link their accounts by the end of November so that we can notify them of the 2024 annual fee payment for the January 30. And then we are being really intentional about not using the word renewal, like membership renewal, because that gets confused with a 3-year renewal. And then people, especially that batch in January, people are like, oh, I paid my renewal. It's like, well, you did, but you also have a membership fee, right? So it gets tricky for that batch that gets the double whammy in January. So we're calling it invoice for the annual fee and your renewal separate and apart, and every 3 years is the renewal cycle versus the one at a time every January, and you have until March 1st to make that payment. So we'll talk a little bit more about later in the agenda as to where we are with, there's a very small batch of LSPs that are still sort of in the process of, they're now suspended because they didn't pay the membership fee. So now they need to pay within the next, I believe, 90 days, correct, Matt? Otherwise, their license is revoked. So that's sort of where we are. So we do want to have a little bit more marketing around that to ensure that we capture people's attention on that.
Is this system a requirement on the LSP board website?
Yes.
Okay, well then everyone's been notified.
They've issued several emails.
We still have people that are, or
I'm just
like,
saying that
yeah,
they've been notified. Yeah.
yes. I mean, we've been searching Google, LinkedIn, maybe we have the wrong address. We just want to do as much as we can, but clearly we cannot self-declare people's address. I
If
mean,
you want
that's,
to maintain a license, that is your livelihood. You don't have to be chased
We've
down.
been down this road.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't like to do.
And
Yeah.
also,
It's nice of you to do that.
and kudos to the LSPA, it's a banner on their page as well.
Yeah,
So
right.
any LSP who's going to either website will see a notice about it. And going back to the October renewal group, there were about 10 that didn't link. So there was outreach by Jonah's group and us to contact those people, encourage them to link so they could renew. And, we find out some of them wanted to lapse, some of them decided to retire. And I think we'll do the same thing as we go forward. Like, Jonah said about 20% haven't linked yet. So there'll be outreach, phone calls, emails. We really want to get in contact with these people and let them know what's required and do our due diligence to make sure that they're aware.
So it was all electronic, no paper for October.
Right. All
Perfect,
paper.
yeah.
That is,
I don't even know electronic.
Excellent.
Jonah, any other parting words? What do you see as our next frontier?
Right now, the whole focus is on the annual fees, so we can have our first cycle online, and that's going to be our focus for the next couple of months.
Okay, wonderful. Well, you'll be seeing a little bit more of Jonah as we get together in the next regulations committee meeting that we will ponder upon as to whether we make this happen, even if it's an hour in December, so we can kind of see where we are and then move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jonah.
Thanks, everyone. Pleasure
always seeing you. Take care. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, next we have Miss Ann Lowry. She's the Assistant Commissioner for the Bureau of Planning and Evaluation. She will be talking to the board members with regards to regulatory change process. So Ann, always a pleasure to have you. We appreciate you were with the board probably before COVID, and you're providing us with a few slides to kind of get us oriented relative to the regulatory change process and the regulations promulgation process. And I know there's been a few little tweaks that have taken place since the last time that you visited. So thank you.
Thank you, Millie. And good morning, everyone. I know this is not the first time I presented to the board, so I hope this is a refresher. I'll try to be high level and describe the major milestones that are involved in amending regulations. And I'll try to get through this and then take any questions you might have. Am I controlling the slides, or Chris, are you controlling the slides?
I think I am. I'm trying to get control right now.
Great. So I have been doing the regulatory promulgation process or overseeing it at Mass DEP for some time. I would note that, you know, the LSP board may have differences in the process for amending your own regulations. And the approval process in particular might be, will likely be different.
Are you back, Ann?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me? Can we go to the next slide, please? Let's see.
And just bear with us for a quick second.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, now can we hear?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. And who's
Okay.
got the control for the slides?
I do.
Okay, perfect.
There we go.
And so we are
There we
good to
go.
go. Thank you.
Thank you. So this slide sets out sort of the major milestones in the process. It sounds like you are already on your way to creating a document of the current regulations marked in red line with the changes that you would like to make. From that, along with some other documents that I'll describe a little later that comprise sort of a package of proposed changes, that package goes through the review and approval process. Then the public notice is advertised both in the Massachusetts Register and in newspapers. You hold public hearings, at least one, receive public comment, and then after that comment period ends, consider any changes that you would like to make as a result of public comment. Create the final version of the regulations that you want to have as final rules, and then go through that same review and approval process for the final regulations. And finally, file the regulations and the required forms with the Secretary of State and on their schedule. And then upon publication in the Code of Massachusetts Regulations, They will have an effective date. They will be effective and will be promulgated. Next slide, please. So this is sort of a graphical representation of that process. We go from the draft changes through internal review. At Mass DEP, we provide our draft package of regulatory amendments to the legal office at EEA. Our contacts in the legal office then share the proposed package with a policy group and then to the secretary. The secretary signs off, and then the package goes to administration and finance and the governor's office for approval. Once those offices approve the regs to go out to public comment, the public notice is published. Oh, back one slide. The public notice is published. The public hearings are held, comment period is held, and then it comes back to the program here, the board, to prepare final changes and go through the internal review again, and then file the package with the Secretary of State and have them published. Along with all of that, there are certain key moments for doing outreach, and you've already talked about that this morning. So I think that will continue to be something that will be required for packages going forward. Now, next slide, please. So there are some statutory requirements in General Law, Chapter 30A for promulgating regulations. Specifically, there has to be a public notice. It is to be published in the Massachusetts Register, which is done by the Secretary of State. The public notice needs to be published in at least 2 newspapers of general circulation. There has to be a public comment period, and there are requirements about the timing and the opening and the closing of the public comment period. And then obviously there's some coordination that needs to happen with the Secretary of State for publication purposes. And then any specific statute may also have special requirements. And I do not know if 21E does have any kind of special approvals or notice. The particular authorization for the LSP board to promulgate regulations may be something that you want to look at to see if there are any special requirements for approval or review. Next slide. There is help from the Secretary of State and others on guidance, providing guidance about how to do this. The Secretary of State has regulations and a handbook that is on their website. It's a little difficult to find, and I have some links later on in this presentation, but that handbook does have some criteria about how to draft regulations and how to promulgate them. There is also guidance from EEA about what documents should be in a package, and there is some new guidance that was just recently issued from the governor's office and ANF in October with a new form that must accompany the package. It's called the Executive Order 562 form, and there were some changes made to that form. So the newly revised version of that form should be completed and submitted with the proposed regulations. The guidance also has a memo, which I can share with all of you, that suggests early consultation for any regulations that fall into certain categories, specifically regulations that have an effect on climate or the environment, very broad category. Those should be socialized, as I've heard used, and an opportunity to consult should be made early on with the Office of Climate, Innovation, and Resilience, the new climate office within the governor's office. Early consultation as well with the folks who will be reviewing the regulations at EEA is also advised. And the other thing that is a fairly new development is the emphasis on transparency and outreach The governor's office is very interested in knowing what kind of outreach has already been done in the development of the regulations, as well as what outreach is planned when the regs are released for public comment and for the public hearing to occur. So DEP has developed a template for doing outreach plans that, you know, sort of gives you a little skeleton to provide that information. And I think that is something that we can share with you as well. Next document, or next slide, sorry. So these are the specific documents that are in a regulatory amendment package. The red line version of the regulations, a clean version of those regulations showing how they will look when promulgated. The Executive Order 562 form, updated as of October. Another form called a Regulatory Impact Assessment form that should be completed as well. Embedded in that form is a small business impact statement, which can be extracted, and then that form, those particular pages need to be filed with the Secretary of State. The EEA summary is just a high-level summary of the proposed changes, background on the regulations, what they do, and what you're doing, why the changes are needed. That high-level summary of the changes is useful in completing the other forms that are required, and useful in doing outreach as well. So it's something that I highly recommend doing, so that you have a condensed, high-level, maybe bulleted summary of the changes that are embodied in the package. The outreach plan is also something that should be included in the package. And finally, a draft public notice here, a public hearing notice. The public hearing notice is also published in the Mass Register, as I've mentioned. Obviously, the dates of the hearings and the dates of the public comment period may not be ready when you first submit the whole package for review, but they can be inserted later. It's good to have that ready to go. It's not something that needs to be reviewed per se in the package itself. Next slide, please. So I do encourage you to consult with legal counsel about the requirements for your own particular statute and authority to promulgate the regulations. You may have a different review process than DEP, so working with your counsel will ensure that you hit all the required elements. I'm assuming, excuse me, I'm assuming that you will be reviewing, sending your package of amendments through EEA, the legal office, and through EEA policy, through the secretary, and then I'm sure that the secretary would then forward the documents onto administration and finance and the governor for review and approval. As I said earlier, early consultation is always a good idea. EEA sometimes does request a briefing, either for just the reviewers at EEA, and sometimes the reviewers from the Office of the Governor or Administration and Finance join in. To that end, it's often nice to have just a set of slides for those briefing sessions. Next slide. Once you do have approval to proceed to public comment, you obviously prepare for public comment, insert the dates of the hearings and the dates of the comment period into your public notice. File that notice with the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State publishes the Mass Register every other Friday, and the deadline for getting in the next one is the date of the previous publication. So there's a filing deadline and a filing deadline and a publication date every other Friday. When you file, you can just send the relevant documents by email to the Secretary of State, which is covered in their guidance document. The regulations should be provided by email, the small business impact statement, those pages, as well as the public hearing notice that will announce the availability to the public that these regulations are available for comment. Next slide. The public notice has to have certain elements in it, and there are many examples of public notices on the Secretary of State's website. So I encourage you to take a look and just model a public notice on one of the ones that seems appropriate. These are the elements that are required by statute, Chapter 30A. Your authority, the time and date for the hearing, a little summary of the proposed changes, contacts and how people can submit comments, as well as the deadline for submitting comments, and where full copies of the regulations may be obtained. It is the Massachusetts Register will not include the full text of the red line version of the regulations that are proposed. So that is a document that should be available elsewhere, particularly on our website or your website, and then any additional information that's required by law should also be put into the public notice. In addition, the public notice is put into 2 newspapers of general circulation, and it's just a note. The public notice that goes into the Mass Register is the same one that gets published in the newspaper, and generally newspapers need about 2 or 3 days advance notice to get it into their legal advertising sections. And then, of course, no one really pores over those legal notices in the newspapers anymore. So it's very helpful to have this information on the website for the board, sharing this information as widely as possible. Next slide. Which leads us to outreach. It's really important to provide notification to the number of stakeholders, the stakeholders that you know of, that the proposed changes are available, where the materials are, and when the hearings will be scheduled. Next slide. For the public hearing, we have most recently been able to provide public hearings virtually and also in person. So deciding how to do that is something that the board might consider. The platform where, if you are using a virtual method for holding the public hearing, should be available in the public hearing notice as a link, or a registration instructions should be provided. Information about how to submit comments should be provided in the public hearing notice, and then when you're at the public hearing, it's obviously important to record those comments that are provided orally. It's good to announce that the hearing is being recorded, and then for written comments, collecting them at the end of the comment period and summarizing them at the end is something that is usually done. Before the public hearing occurs, you should consider translation and interpretation needs. If it's an in-person hearing, an interpreter may be requested. Mass DEP also translates the public hearing notices when we publish them on our website. We do not translate them and provide them to the Secretary of State for publication or have them published in other languages in newspapers. But on our website, they are translated. When deciding where and when to hold the public hearing, it's nice to have, if they're in person, locations that are accessible to public transportation, and consider the timing as well of the hearings to occur not only during like the workday, but it's nice to be able to afford folks an opportunity to attend a hearing that is after 5 p.m., early evening. for those people who are working at other jobs and not focusing all day on these regulations. Next slide. As I mentioned before, there are potential specific timing requirements in your specific statute, but there are also some timing requirements that generally apply. The first public hearing date after public notice is published cannot occur sooner than 10 days, I believe, after the first public notice, after the process begins. And then the last public hearing, the public comment period has to end no sooner than 10 days after the last public hearing. So there are a few timelines to consider when you create a master schedule, so to speak, considering the length of the comment period and when it should close. Next slide. After the public comment, the steps are probably pretty self-evident. You're going to be considering the comments that you received. You may create a response to comments document responding to categories of comments or each comment individually if you don't have too many. You consider any needed changes to your proposal as a result of public comments and create the final document. Then you go through the review process once more. Next slide. So considering the public comments is the first step. Preparing a new package of required documents, revised and updated forms, as well as the red line with showing changes from the draft that was provided for public comment. So this is a new red line that shows changes that you have made from the draft that you proposed. It's often very helpful to also have a red line from the current regulations that shows changes from the current to the final. The Secretary of State creates a something they call the galleys, which I'll get to in the next slide, which are paper copies of their publication software that they request the agency proof. So reviewing the Secretary of State's galleys of the changes is also something that should be done during this time. And then updating the forms and repeating the internal review process. Next slide. This shows a few resources on the Secretary of State website, their guide to promulgating regulations, the citation to the Secretary's regulatory requirements as well, and the forms that are submitted, or the forms that are online at the Secretary of State's website for submitting only the final regulations. Those are all available on the Secretary of State's website. Back to the galleys. The galleys are provided, mailed, hard copy, paper versions of the proposed changes to the contact that is provided to the Secretary of State. When those are received, the Secretary requests that the program, here the board, review those hard copy galleys for errors, and that the program, the board here, use a pen and mark any errors that are found. The corrected galleys are then submitted back to the Secretary of State's office, and those marked up galleys should include any errors created by the Secretary of State in producing the first red line version or the first version of the amended regulations, as well as any additional changes that you want to make from the public comment period. So those corrected galleys are to be submitted back to the Secretary of State's office when the final package is also filed. And I think that's about all I have for you today. Next slide. It's just my thank you slide. These are my contact information. This is my contact information. And please, I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have. I suspect that there may be additional questions as you go through the process. This is, it's complicated, and the details can have a way of sneaking up on you.
Well,
Are there any
fantastic, Anne. We so appreciate this very thorough presentation. I'm sure that the board will be harkening back to, this particular presentation in addition to you for any guidance on how to compile some of the information. I have two very quick questions that maybe might need to be reserved for future understanding of the process. The first one has to do with very specific to boards. And I know like we have like a soil evaluator board, we have other types of boards. When there's a presentation to the Secretary of the Energy and Environmental Affairs, for example, does the board executive director need to be accompanied by a member of the board? So that's one question that I have. And I guess the second question would be when the time comes for us to have a public hearing, my question is whether the executive director serves as the presiding officer of that particular public hearing.
Two really good questions, Millie, and I have not helped other boards amend their regulations. So I'm not sure I do know the answers to these questions, but I do want to note that a briefing for the secretary is really not a requirement. It's more a courtesy and informational. It's helpful to be able to answer questions in person about detailed regulatory changes. She may not request a briefing on the proposed changes from the board, or she may. In that case, I think working out who should be in attendance is something that you can work out with the Secretary's office as well as your legal counsel to see if there's any representation issues. And similarly for the public hearing, I don't believe there's any requirement in Chapter 30A that the public hearing officer be qualified in any way or be have any particular association with an agency or program or board. So that's another good question to ask your legal counsel to take a look at that with an eye to your own board. But I do know that for Mass DEP's regulations, the hearing officer appointed conducting those hearings has been, DEP staff, not necessarily the commissioner, not necessarily an assistant commissioner or deputy commissioner. It's just very important that the hearing be recorded, that comments be collected, and that we've also noted that the public hearing is an opportunity for people to make comments, not a Q&A session. So
right, exactly. It's a
another point that you might want to consider is scheduling a question and answer period or an informational session before a public hearing starts, which is something that DEP has done. And in that way, you are afforded the opportunity to have a little back and forth before the official formal public hearing begins.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And I know that prior to this process, we always, during the advertisement, we request for anybody who needs translation services, we typically have a vendor available. We would probably do this in a hybrid setting. So there's a vendor available if there's any kind of request for any type of translation that's needed. We did this with the NSA regs quite recently. So, okay.
I have two questions.
Yeah, of course.
The draft that comes out of this board in step 2 on your first slide, can that have included input from a stakeholder like the LSPA, which has been discussed in the past? Or does it have to be just our draft without any input from anyone, any stakeholders, because they have provided comments in the past. And we-
Yeah.
Right, right. That's a great
That draft that
question.
needs always
That's a
sent
great
through.
question. Mhm. I
Go
think,
ahead.
yeah, I think the proposed changes, the proposed amendments to your regulations is something that comes from the board through the review process. The outreach plan and the EEA summary, both of those documents provide the opportunity to explain the stakeholdering that has happened before or in the process of developing the regulations, in the process of deciding what changes need to be made. I think the governor's office and EEA are very interested in making sure that there has been opportunity for a lot of stakeholders to provide input. So being able to explain that is really important. But at the end of the day, I think it is the board's proposal. And so, it's the board that's proposing the changes. They are your regulations.
Yeah, and I think we can kind of have, those changes have been, those suggestions have been around for a while. It's known, public, it's, they've written various letters noting some efficiencies that could be had. I think that's almost been embedded into the spirit of drafting regulations that go go forward, not backwards. So if there's knowledge out there, it's in the best interest of these regulations. I don't see why they should not be embedded and predicated on how we as a group write these regulations. That could be subject to additional comments by the association.
Yeah.
So.
And my other question is this process any easier for updating regs that have been kicking around for decades as opposed to brand new regulations?
That's an interesting question. I think the process is basically the same, but there is a place on one of the forms, I think it's the regulatory impact assessment form, but don't hold me to that, where the question is asked, when was the last time these regulations were changed? And I think that might inform, I don't know, the reviewers as to the need for updates and changes. But the process is the same.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's predicated on the level of controversy or attention by certain stakeholders. So, yeah, that drives the bus often. People will want more public hearings than what's usual and customary. Well, terrific. And we appreciate members of the board or externally, Chris. I don't know if there's something on the chat that's signaling to you that someone from the members of the board, the public have questions.
Nothing so far.
Because you have that presentation.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Send that around.
We just received it this morning, so we'll
Oh,
make sure that that gets circulated. Okay.
And I will also provide you with the guidance that was recently issued from the governor's office and ANF, as well as the required forms, EO 562 form and RIA regulatory impact assessment form, along with our outreach template, so that you can take a look at those.
That would be
I'll
fantastic.
send them to Millie if that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you,
Or
Anne,
Chris.
very much. We appreciate your time. And again, thanks for informing us on this very important process.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Thank you, and have a good rest of the meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. So this future meeting will be on January 2024. I think, what's the actual date?
Well, the 9th is our next scheduled board meeting, but I think we talked about maybe getting together right for regulations in mid-December. To kind of churn through the red line strikeout.
Yeah, so the next steps for this one are we'll issue the red line strikeout. We will seek feedback from all the board members and make a decision as to whether we have a meeting in December. Just to, in general, just touch base. This is what, does this version reflect the comments that you have made in the past? Reading this with fresh eyes from start to finish. and ensure that all of those efficiencies and conversations have been captured. And I think predicated on where we are on the readiness of this version, then we can kind of start navigating the process, I think. And, you know, there might be an expression of interest from the association to talk about the regs, you know, kind of opening the opportunity for discussion, because as Anne described, once you get into a public hearing situation, we just simply say, you know, state your name, affiliation, they read the comments, and we pretty much say thank you, and that's it. There's no response to the comments that are rendered. So it's not interactive at all. It's just a sort of collecting those comments. So, okay, perfect. So with that, again, our future meeting will be then perhaps in December. And we could probably contemplate having this meeting in a virtual manner, just because it's just a really busy month. So with that, I will adjourn this meeting at 10:57 a.m. And I would like to turn it over to David, if you don't mind, just carrying forth with the Continuing Education Committee.
Yep, I call to order at 10:58. I don't think there's any announcements for old business.
No.
Under new business, there's 2 new course requests and 1 reapproval. The first new course request is an individual who took a college course for a 4-credit college course and is looking for approval for 12 technical credits, which I know that we've done in the past, and I think it was also for 12 technical credits. So I'm making a motion to approve it. Second. Any discussions from the board or the public?
So the board has approved individual college courses for.
Yeah, but for this, yeah, I think it's been this same person, the same university.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah, but I mean, a full semester of college course.
The regulations allow for 70% of the classroom time to be eligible credits, which if you did the math, you'd be eligible for 52 hours of technical credits, but he's only asking for 12.
Okay, so do you want to go
Yes
to the,
is approving,
go ahead.
Paul,
Oh, yes.
there's not too many of us.
You need 6.
I'm a yes. Greg?
Yes.
And then Kathy
Yes.
and Gail,
Yes.
and it's Craig, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's approved. The second,
Oh, Kirk, hey, how are you? You're here. Welcome.
the second approval request is from the LSPA. It's membership meeting today, looking for approval for 1.5 regulatory credits. It's an overview of the MCP amendment, a live webinar format, and then a future on-demand format.
And I had a question about that, making sure that it's regulatory credits, not DEP regulatory credits.
Right. Yep.
And we just want to make sure that we don't have the issues we had before when there were regulatory credits that people thought were DEP credits. So asking that it be advertised very clearly that it is not DEP credit.
Understood.
Yeah, good
I
point.
make a motion to approve. Second. Any discussions on the board or public? Yes is approval. Paul?
Yes.
David's a yes. Greg?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And Kirk?
Yes.
Excellent. And then there's, of course, approval request. 1 technical credit up from 25 minutes that was previously presented as part of another class or course, I think. And they're looking for webinar live and on-demand format.
And I have a question about that, because there are people that attended that, already attended it for the 25 minutes. How is that going to work?
We do what we have done in the past. We put a different letter, we put a letter at the end of the course number.
Okay.
That'd be course 1822A will be the new course number for anybody who wants to take this course.
I mean, do folks think
It
it's,
was really good. I want to say it was really good.
do you think it's a big enough change to make it a whole new course?
It has to be, because it was done in conjunction with another presentation. So there's going to be a lot more. I would assume there's much more information, like almost twice as much.
Okay, so I mean, you should to approve it with the letter A after the course number. Second.
Yep, this is
Any other discussion?
1822.
Yeah, 1822,
A.
1822A. Both formats, on demand and webinar.
Okay, so board staff, we captured that, right?
We've done this in the past. It's great that they're doing. Yes is approval. Paul? Yes. I'm a yes. Greg?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And Kirk?
Yes.
There's nothing else except that the next meeting will be in January. Hybrid, online and here.
Mhm.
So that ends the continuing ed committee meeting at 11:02.
Okay. There was a message that.
Oh, yeah, we'll update the course list on the website. Give us a few days for that. And for the course providers, we'll get you the attendance forms in the next couple of days.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're adjourning at what time? I'm sorry, so we can capture it.
11:02.
11:02 a.m. Thank you. Okay, so this will be short with regards to the Professional Conduct Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order at 11:03 a.m. Well, I guess we could do the announcement twice. So the good news is that we have hired a counsel. So we have a general counsel for the LSP board. His name is Jared Muggio. Jared will start on December 8th. So we're excited. I've talked to
18.
him. 18? I want him sooner, but the 18.
Yeah, we're listening right now. Just be here.
Well, we're already sending
That's
him
great.
information. We're already sending him a lot of materials. I wanted to talk to you very briefly about him. I know that we can talk a little bit more later, but maybe I can save, just advance the information just to cut through the suspense. So Jared Muggio, an attorney, he's awesome. He attended Bentley University for his undergrad. He attended Massachusetts School of Law. He's worked in private practice since 2012, and he's a true environmentalist. He did a clerkship at XX Superior Courthouse. He's worked at Thompson Island on Outward Bound Center, serving as Marine Operations Manager. He's been a liaison with schools and environmental programs, again, through Outward Bound. And he's also worked as a researcher at the Marine Service, NOAA Migration Species. So he has a really fantastic biological, scientific, legal background, and he's extra nice. So I'm really excited. That's, one criteria. But I'm very excited to have him join in again, and so is he. So we will be onboarding him immediately. We'll be meeting here on December 18th. Any of the board members, you're welcome to come and say hi, stop by. He will be actually HR, Commonwealth of Mass HR onboarded on the 18th. And then we're going to pull together like a little check-in, get to know each other. You guys are more than welcome if you're in the area. I promise some goodies if you come in and say hello. But for sure, he will be ready to go in January. So
This is spelling?
yes, Jared, Jared. Last name is Muggio, Muggeo. Mhm.
If you have a meet and greet on the 18th, just let us know the time.
Yeah,
Right.
and maybe it could be in the afternoon. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. So that's really going to be very helpful to alleviate our CRT, moving that forward. So that's great news. So I just wanted to note to you, I sent you an email that was basically forwarded an email, right, from Chris from the AGO. And she just wanted to share another scheduling update in the case that's titled, which one is that? Is that the C?
05C07.
So do you want to do the report out for the CRT?
Sure. So Christine reported that the brief that was due by the LSP was initially rejected by the court for technical formatting reasons. So a new deadline to file his brief was Monday, the 13th, November 13th. And so the board response is due 30 days later on December 13th. Christine had mentioned she'll likely request a 60-day extension for our brief.
Okay, so that's a key important point because we'll clearly need to get together and talk about what's contained within the brief. So we're watching for that. As soon as we have any additional communications from the Attorney General's office, we'll be the first to contact each and every one of the board members. Anything else? I think there was a reduction. Do I have it? And I need to release
Oh, for
it, or-
the other cases, the board members still have the redacted material for 21C01 and 22C01 that was presented to you at the August meeting, or given to you at the August meeting. So when the new attorney is onboarded, we expect to get moving with that and be able to discuss it in the January 9th full board meeting.
Mhm.
And then the newest case, we received 23C01. That was received back in July. The notice went to the LSP on September 13th, 2023, and the response was received on October 4th. And that will be redacted and given to the board members for the January meeting. That's it.
Great, and I think we've been attempting to just kind of get together with all of the CRT members, not to talk about the case per se, but just basically just arrange documents that we have and sort them and put them in a file as need be. So just, full disclosure for all the board members, those that are not part of the CRT, there's been a little bit of activity just trying to organize ourselves and have the materials ready for our new attorney. Okay, so let's see. I think anything else on that, Matt? Can you?
That's it.
Okay, so any questions from the board members, members of the public? No?
No.
Okay, so again, future meeting, looking forward to robust conversation starting January 9th. We will do some homework between the 18th and the 9th. We'll definitely try to at least have some kind of organization to our materials and moving them forward. Next meeting to be held November 9th, hybrid Boston office. And I would like to adjourn this meeting at 11:09. Okay, so board meeting, calling this meeting to order at 11:10. And again, as noted, I am calling this meeting in a facilitator role, not as a member of the board with voting powers. Announcements. We already announced Attorney Muggio starting on December 18th. Nothing else to announce for now. Do I have any agenda additions, deletions, other changes to this draft agenda? None? Okay, none from your end, Chris? Okay, all right, so Greg, would you mind just, do we need to do a roll call to adopt the agenda, or do we just move forward? They can all say aye and we move forward, okay. All right, just to note also that the virtual meeting minutes for last month's meeting, they're uploaded, they're available in the LSP board webpage. So that recording is available. We kind of snuck in regulatory under old business, the regulatory interpretation of the 309 CMR 3.092A, because it's a recurring theme. And in talking to Natasha, talking to Matt, we're like, it's kind of floating around as an item. Why don't we just tuck it into the old business? But this is definitely, I believe that the board requested for this particular regulatory interpretation. We felt that it needed legal eyes on the actual citation. So if that's still the case, that's going to be one of the things that we will ask the new attorney to put eyes on this regulation. And I would like to turn to Matt to kind of summarize the essence of this particular regulation and what was the actual ask.
Quickly, LSP license had lapsed and took courses to get his license renewed, but also took additional courses. And the interpretation of the regulations is for what do you do when your license is lapsed, and can you carry over credits? When does your license period start? And then if you can't take courses in one license period and apply them to another licensing period. So that's the gray area that we've been asked to evaluate, and hopefully the staff attorney will help us with that.
Am I correct? Thank you for your summary of past decisions, because it seems like the board has done that in the past, allowed a course that was taken prior to licensure.
I think this is a series of courses.
Am I missing?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
I don't think there's ever been a case like this where.
It looked like one of them was early, 2011.
Okay, I haven't gone that far.
That was like in your table.
I think those are waiver petitions.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm.
Yeah, but I mean, I think.
Either way, but I was just commenting that we spent a lot of time thinking about this. And yes, we do need a counsel to
Yeah.
weigh on.
This is an individual that
We had done it before.
was sort of taking all these tests while the license status was not active. And then when it became active, it's like, oh, I have the jackpot of all these
Right.
courses, and now they should be applicable because I took them. So I think that's sort of the issue there.
And it's not a time sensitive matter. Right?
We don't need to get into it. But
Yeah.
And for the petition you referenced from 2011, that person had taken a course. The renewal period ended April 30th. He took a course on April 29th, so one day before. So I think maybe there is some leniency with that petition being approved because of that.
Well,
that
that's
one day
leniency, but it's.
or understanding or compassion. This LSP a few years ago took many courses.
Yeah, no, I understand.
A lot of months, so.
It's
I
up
was
to the
surprised
board.
that a previous board had approved it. Just
Yeah.
makes sense, but was surprising given what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Again, I think, we'll have counsel give, review, and it's going to be subject to vote. So y'all start thinking about it and looking at it from all angles. Okay, so we will probably bring this back in January when we all get together on January 9th. So at this time, I have a set of dockets that warrant a motion, second, and a vote. Specifically, we have 5 dockets in front of you. The renewal docket number 1 basically speaks to new renewal date for these 11 LSPs will be October 30, 2026. They've completed all the requirements for the renewal. So
No, there's a more recent document, Chris.
Yeah, there's a newer one
okay.
that we got sent it just a couple of days ago or yesterday. I don't
I
sometime.
don't know. I printed out what I had from the
Natasha can send
packet.
you the most recent
I
one.
have it.
Okay, can you just
Everything's being slow.
Joshua, what time is the document was issued on date and time? So I can
Should have
just,
been yesterday morning around 7:30.
There it is.
I make a motion to approve docket 1.
Second.
Okay, so, all in favor, please say yes when I call your name. And let me go back to the list that David pulled together. So that's Paul,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes,
Kathy,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes,
Craig,
Yes.
and Kirk.
Yes.
Okay, so motion carries. That's approved. I need a motion.
To approve docket number 2.
Yes. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Paul,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Greg,
yes,
Kathy,
Yes.
Gail,
yes,
Craig,
Yes.
Kirk.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Docket number 3, I need a motion.
Motion to
Move to
approve
approve.
docket number 3.
Okay, Paul,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Greg,
yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Gail.
Wait, I had one question, I'm sorry. This was the
Sure.
one that had the weird renewal date compared to the others that had that had a 90-day extension, and I'm not sure why that one was different than the other one with the 90-day extensions. I thought it was supposed to, a 90-day extension was supposed to go back to the original, because otherwise they get a year and a quarter.
This is the only 90-day extension in the docket today?
Well, I think, but I thought 90-day extensions go to their normal renewal date.
Well, they haven't submitted their supplemental renewal. This is to get them another 90 days, and then they'll be expecting
Oh,
the
I see,
supplemental
okay.
renewal.
So that, but it would go back, it would revert to October 30th if they get their stuff in.
Correct. If they submit the supplemental renewal application, they'll revert back to their October 30th date, and then 3 years from then,
Okay,
with their new renewal date.
all right, I just wanted to check. Okay, then yes,
So, quick question, Gail, is that understood by the way that the renewal docket is presented here?
it wasn't, no.
How can we fix it so we can just edit and then ensure that it's,
I might say a temporary renewal date or something, and not call it a renewal date, because their renewal date is gonna be, if they meet their obligations, that it's going to be October 30th, 2020, whatever, 7?
Yeah.
Or 26.
And yeah, that's a good point. I think there's been some confusion with the term renewal date. Should we use expiration date as a better term?
Yes,
Oh,
that's
we're
the
going
right,
back to-
yes, I think that's what's been used in the past, maybe.
yeah,
What it is.
exactly,
I mean, that's how it's listed in Epics. It's listed as an expiration date.
yeah,
I think for all of them, the new
yeah,
renewal date should be new expiration date.
Yeah.
And maybe for the 90-day extension, like Greg said, call it a new extension date.
Yeah.
So that kind of differentiates the others.
yeah. So, okay, so here's a moment where if we go with that decision, and I think it makes sense if it matches up with Epics or matches up with EDP or other, we need to be mindful if in the event that appears, there's a specific terminology in the board regs.
It
Don't
says
know.
expiration date in our regs.
So then we need to be faithful to the regs. So I think we're going to be seeing a change in terminology from this point on to reflect the terminology that's specific to the regulations and also in harmony with the database. So that's a great catch. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Gail. All right, Gail, you are a yes?
Yes, I was a yes.
Thank you. Craig?
Yes.
Thank you. And Kirk?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next,
Motion to approve docket in the form, second with the new expiration date. Sorry, go on, I'm done.
yeah, no, I like it. All right, Paul?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes,
Kathy?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes,
Craig?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Weston?
So this last one, docket number 5, renewal date is 2027?
Yeah, so this was a lapsed license.
Oh, okay.
So lapsed on July 30th. They We submitted renewal application. So the regulations say license that is renewed during the year after it has lapsed shall run for 3 years from the 30th of January, April, July, or October, whichever date occurs soonest after the date the board approves a license renewal. So if it gets approved today, the soonest date would be January,
Okay,
and 3 years from
that's
January.
great. So I make a motion to approve docket number 5.
Second,
Right, okay, so let's go through the roster. Paul,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Gail,
yes.
Craig,
Yes.
and Kirk.
Yeah.
Okay, motion carries. Is that the end of dockets?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much for all those great catches, improvements. Much appreciate your looking into this. Okay, so we're pleased to announce that 10 candidates passed the recent LSP exam. I'd like for Ms. Natasha to state their names, and then we'll come back a little bit to talk a little bit about the exam summary in general. But Natasha, if you could kindly provide us with the listing,
So we have Joseph Spencer,
license number.
yep, 9422, Barrett Smith, 3048, William Phelps, 5227, James Blackwell, 4192, Crystal Wolf, 4103, John D. Mill, 3962, Joshua Clement, don't have the entire number there, and Brian Thurelt, 3692, Andrea Egan, 1479, and Nathan Gartner, 7147.
Let me find, I know we have Mr. Clement's numbers.
8515.
8515,
Yes.
Yeah, there's an 8 missing.
okay. So I just want to say thank you very much to this board for your hard work, for participating in the ARPs. That's the first step for these individuals that have expressed an interest in furthering their livelihood as a licensed ed professional. We appreciate your service. Great pool of candidates that you advanced. 10 of those 17 candidates passed. And I just want to say also thank you to Natasha, Matt, Chris, everybody who was there. I was there on the first day, and then I just, it was going well. Matt, Natasha, and Chris basically took care of the operations, making sure that the room was comfortable and proctoring was done correctly. We always like to hear feedback. Thus far, we have, I believe it's 5 out of the 7 candidates that did not pass that wish to review the exam. We welcome them. And is this the right time when we go into talking a little bit about maybe offering a new test on recent? Or do we have something on the
Exam
agenda?
committee.
Exam
or
committee, maybe a
might be
little bit.
better.
Okay, so we're going to be
Involved.
talking about maybe what could happen between now and before March 1st. So we will hold on that. But again, I just want to congratulate these new LSPs. We wish them all the best, and we appreciate, again, their expression of interest and taking the test and preparing, and we really appreciate that.
Do you know how many of the 17 were first-time takers?
Yeah, we have that information.
There's 4 retakers, so 13 first timers.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, and we utilized all the 3 versions. We kind of mixed it up, so there was diversity in the administration of the tests. As you know, a passing grade is 78%. So, good group. Let's see, how about if we talk about, okay, the ARP, do you want to run that?
Yes. So we have 2 new applicants that came in the past couple of weeks. Brian Klaus and Darren Kirkian, hopefully I pronounced that right. So we are looking into those applications now to make sure they're administratively complete. waiting on references for both. But we'd like to get an ARP set up so we can meet maybe in early December. Definitely want to get them vetted and reviewed before the January board meeting and get them on the agenda for the January board meeting. So looking for board members to raise their hand and willing to serve on the ARP.
Or virtual hand for those that are
Virtual hand, yes,
participating
speak up,
virtually.
out there.
Yeah.
You need one LSP at least.
Yeah. Matt, this is Craig. I can do one.
This is Kirk, I can do one.
I have to recuse, I can't.
Want to do it, Paul?
No, I have to recuse.
Oh, okay. Do you have a third yet? Anybody?
I can be the third, but that's the second LSP.
That's okay, as long as you have at least one.
Right, yeah, I'll go. It's
Okay.
gonna be one ARP, both.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Well, Craig, Kirk, and David, thank you.
thank you. Okay, and you stated that references are still pending, is that?
You're right, there's references we're still waiting on for both candidates. So once we get those, we'll send out everything to you three and get a date scheduled.
Okay, so we'll endeavor to nudge the
Yeah,
candidates so we can
yeah.
kind of get this wrapped up and you all have the packet in front of you so we can move along with
Will
this
they look
one.
different in electronic?
What was-
Yeah.
Well, we've done electronic applications in the previous batch.
Oh, I have.
Okay, yeah, you'll see them a little bit, if it's your first time, you'll see the files a little bit different. It'll be like a dozen files instead of just one scan of a hard copy.
Okay, so you actually did it online?
Yes, yeah, all the applications are online now.
Well, I understand that they are, but the review of them is also on.
Yes, yeah, and you can print out what I send you.
No.
But it's, yeah.
No,
It's actually kind of convenient. All the different sections are sort of separate files. so you can-
Oh, good.
Nice, okay, thanks.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So item number 6, other licensing related matters. I'd like to turn this over for Natasha to report out.
All right, so as of right now, we have a total of 408 active, 1 inactive. So I'm gonna go back to the 408. We still need to add the 10, so expect that number to move to 418, hopefully by the end of the week. And then we have 2 that are currently in suspended status that will be bringing in checks this week. So hopefully that'll bump it up to 420 by Friday.
And this is because they paid the fee. Now they're going from suspended to active. So that's all it takes to get you into an active status.
But they're doing it by check, is that what you're saying?
They have to, yes. Because the
That can't-
2023
That can't be done online because it's.
It wasn't uploaded, those invoices, so they physically need to bring in a check or mail a check.
Going forward,
Mhm.
it'll be electronic payments, but since.
If they have paid in the past, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
We're getting there. Okay, 2023 annual fees report. So Natasha, if you'd be so kind as to give us that report.
So on September 21st of this year, 10 LSPs did not pay, and they received suspension letters on October 21st. They do have until January 18th of next year to pay that fee or it will be revoked. Like I mentioned earlier, we will have one coming in today, hopefully, to pay his fee, another one coming in by the end of the week. So that'll drop it down roughly to about 8 who are on suspended status.
Thank you, Natasha. All right, and Matt, if you would be so kind as to give us the renewal report for October 2023.
Okay, yeah, for the October renewal group, there was 41 LSPs that had an October 30th expiration date. 11 were previously approved at the last board meeting in October. We approved 21 earlier today. 6 of those LSPs of the 41 indicated they will not renew, but hope to renew within the upcoming months. 2 LSPs retired. And unfortunately, 1 LSP passed away last November. John Anklitz, if anybody knew him. So that total is 41 for the group.
In the past, we've announced the retirements. Are we,
Well, the other names,
yeah, unless they ask to be announced, but I know we've done that in the past.
you remember?
Is it
For the last board meeting, I think I have one to January.
I know it's acknowledged.
Yeah, no, that's good. And you know what?
Yeah, Beverly used to list off the names who were
Okay.
retired. I don't know if it's because they had asked me.
I don't think that's been the,
No,
I don't think we've received any bad feedback in terms of, please don't tell anyone that I'm.
I think I have the two names. in
Yeah,
front
go
of me.
ahead. Yes.
David Crispin, number 9788, and James Okun, 4836, told us they were retired.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
We got 10 new ones.
I know, right? Gotta hang in there. All right, let's see, number 10, petition for waiver, LSP 7880. Matt's gonna get into a little bit, but just the punchline, to be to the punchline, is that waiver, petition for waiver has been withdrawn. And Matt can speak to that without really getting into, details about medical or anything like that.
Yeah, we talked about this at the last board meeting in October, the petition that came in a few days before the meeting. So we just had the one email. And if you recall, the LSP didn't have enough credits to renew and was asking for an extension of time to take additional credits. The question that came up at the last board meeting was how many credits did he have? And did he understand if he had 36 or more, he could apply for a regular 90-day extension? And then there's some questions about the family medical issue. And so those questions were sent to the LSP. Asked that he respond within 14 days. Didn't get a response, so I called him on the 14th day. He indicated he only had 20 credits. He understood that there was a 90-day extension request that can be made if you have 36 or more, and he understood that he wasn't eligible for that because he only had 20 credits. And then he didn't want to provide more information that would document good cause that's required by regulations regarding the family medical issue. So with that being said, he requested to withdraw his petition. He was aware that his license would lapse on October 30th.
Thank you.
Okay. And by the way, we are continuing the project that board members requested for the board staff to work on, which is basically building upon the Excel spreadsheet or Word document, whichever Matt is using, that goes back historically. So we started with the most recent and just working our way back so that it will facilitate board members thinking and, decision-making being a little bit more just consistent across the board. So hopefully we will continue to populate that document and every month just, release it as, time permitting. But I know Matt has devoted a lot of time and energy, and I know that Natasha has also been researching based on past agendas. So I want to thank both of y'all for really, just listening to the request from the board and making good on that.
Thank you.
With that being said,
It's very useful.
Okay.
Yeah, very good.
Any changes or anything you'd like to see different in the formatting or the layout?
I think it gives us what we're looking for, which is some history that some of us may not have been aware of.
Yeah, I actually noticed something interesting about it, which was that there's a big gap, like that we've had a lot recently, and then we hadn't had a lot for a long time in between.
Yeah, that gap between 2020 and 2011, that's because I haven't gone back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did pick up those older ones, just reviewing other documents and just stumbled across them. That's why I added it to the table. But the next table you'll see that gap between 2011 and 2020 filled in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We had a lot during the
Oh, yeah.
pandemic because of not getting notices or people not being able to take courses.
Yeah, we definitely hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you. I'm
It's a
glad you
great
asked the
resource.
question, and I'm glad that you're on it, Matt. Much appreciated. Okay, exam committee. So just a few things. First, I want to enumerate those individuals that are part of the LSP Board Exam Committee. That would be David Austin, Gail Batchelder, Greg McBride, Patrick Heron, Kirk Franklin, Chris Borges, John Fitzgerald, and this almost being like a subcommittee now. Question. You had expressed interest?
Yep.
So I need to add you. Paul McKinley. Okay, so I'm just gonna provide a really brief summary of the board meeting that, the exam committee that took place on November 9th. The first thing is, just by way of a motion that was seconded, Gail Batchelder was identified and voted as the chair. So Gail has a lot of experience with matters that have direct input on exams, just like David also. So this is going to be really great. We have individuals that have been through it, done this, gotten through it, and they will help us with the task at hand. We talked about the fact that a confidentiality agreement needs to be entered into because this is very confidential information that it's being discussed, which is why we have this subgroup, and then the report out is a little bit more generic in nature. But it's based on just maintaining the confidentiality of the exam. We talked about the fact that through the auspices of the new mass contingency plan, which will be promulgated on 1 March 2024, it's time for us to revisit all the questions and ensure that they are kept up with the new practice, any kind of scientific changes, advancements in science, technology, engineering, and therefore, we are going to be looking at all of them. And also considering questions that are germane to the new MCP. So for example, things like
Climate change, sustainability, things like that, that the new MCP addresses. So just for potential candidates post March 1st, be on the lookout that, the questions will reflect the totality of the mass contingency plan as it is, effective 1 March 2024. We basically talked about the fact that there is a process for everything in life, and in this one, we need the assistance of a subject matter expert titled psychometrician. That word is really fancy. I had to look it up. And basically, it has to do with someone who will make those determinations as to whether the sentences convey what they mean, etc. So the Licensed Psych Professional Board does have the budget to hire a psychometrician. I need to work with past individuals that have actually contracted this individual. So I think there is some paper record that I can go back to and hopefully retain that very person that's very familiar with the practices of the license board. So that's in play. That's something that the board will be working with during the month of December. One thing that I wanted to bring forth and for consideration of the board discussion, maybe question mark as to whether we need a vote, some kind of motion. Second has to do with contemplating administering one last, for good old sakes, times test using the materials from the quote old MCP. So whatever we have right now, which is versions 1, 2, and 3, we are readily available to issue a test, administer a test, maybe in February. As Matt described and Natasha, they have received already expression of interest from 2 individuals that wish to take the test. So, our sentiment is there's interest out there. Also, maybe some of the candidates that failed, did not pass, may want to retake the test also while they studied a lot, materials fresh on their mind. So we are here just to kind of seek input, comment, and again, a decision making. We are happy to do whatever the board feels as though we should do. So
we have the time, resources. I think we nailed it when it comes to administering the tests. So it's open for discussion at this moment.
So it would be 2 people who just had their applications approved and haven't taken the test, plus the 7.
Plus anybody who
pass.
wishes between now and then. So Matt, if you want to talk a little bit about the
Yeah,
mechanics.
the 2 new applicants, they haven't been approved yet, but if they do get approved
Those
eventually,
2, yeah.
they would be eligible, and then the 7
Yeah.
that did not pass, they could have to retake the test, and they would have to wait 90 days, so it'll be after February 3rd, they'd be eligible to take the retest. And then any other new candidates that apply between now and then, between now and January
Yeah, we would have a board meeting in January
9th.
9, where we would, so getting the marketing out there, anybody who's interested at the
I mean, you
fest.
guys seem to be up for it and you're really good at it and the staff wants to do it. I think it's a great idea because the next exam is probably not going to be until the fall because of the reg changes.
That's
So
correct.
I think it's a great idea.
Nice,
And I think it's really not, yeah, I think it's really nice of you guys to be willing to do that. So I think it's helpful for the potential LSPs, and I can't think of a reason, as long as you're willing to do it, that we would not.
No, I think it's a good thing to do. And again, the reason we were strained before was the lack of resources. And now you guys are here and obviously functioning and willing to do it. So I do.
Yeah, and for sure, Chris is the master of all because he was
Sorry,
so helpful.
Sorry.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Well,
Chris,
I'm looking at the side.
yeah, I think, it really, in fairness, it really takes individuals that have the IT and the proctoring and just getting everybody sort of organized. And, our testing center, the Central Region Office, DEP, was just a perfect location with nice, bright space and, accommodations to carry that.
Yeah, no, apologies.
Oh, no.
No, well, you were here before. You're always there. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so, Gail, do you, as chair, do you feel like you need a vote, or are you, what would you like to do? And
I think it wouldn't hurt. I don't know that we need a vote, because the opportunity to offer the exam, I don't think we've ever voted on when it was going to be offered before.
right, so it would be nice.
We can easily
Okay.
do it. I think if we want to, I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, yes, let's have the exam. Let's somebody make a motion to, well, you're the chair of this group, but we should make a motion to do it.
Yeah, you're the chair. It's just that I think we had a little bit more LSP heavy things to talk about, but you can decide to do what you want to do. So.
Well, do you want to have the vote at this meeting and just get it?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can do that.
Well, then I will make a motion. I will make the motion, or you want to make the motion?
All exam days.
I don't think voting is necessary for
I don't either, but.
Okay.
ministerial.
Okay, so we are committing ourselves to to an LSP exam, 90 days thereafter, to provide the opportunity for those individuals that wish to take the test again, plus any new candidates that come forth. And so long as they go through the ARP process in our advance, we will happily accept and seat them at the board.
Just one note on that, the people who are looking at the exams, if they challenge any questions, it may not be resolved before February.
We are going to be, go ahead, Natasha.
I should just know that.
Yeah.
And the board meeting in February is scheduled for February 13th. So that would actually be the last day that we can approve somebody new to take the exam. So I'd recommend that we schedule the exam towards the end of February, just to capture any last applicants.
Great.
Yeah.
And will you need to do it on 2 days because of the number of people that you already might have?
So I think, yeah, because I think the maximum is 10, but we like to kind of have a little bit of roomy, maybe 8 tops per day. So if we need to commit to a couple of days, that's fine. And as far as the challenges, we've already received 5 individuals that have challenged their the exams. So we are working with them to have them come in and, just.
Well, they've requested to review it. They haven't filed official.
They
exam
haven't.
question.
No, but they're going to come in.
Okay, yeah.
Come in, first step is review.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm. So we would need to try to group group them quick so then we can have a exam committee meeting thereafter to talk about any challenge questions.
John usually looks at them first.
Yeah. Yeah, so we would submit any challenges to John Fitzgerald and then
Yep.
report back to the committee with his recommendation.
That is
I
correct.
have all the study guides ready.
Oh, good.
Send them to you guys so that when you get the requests in, when people want to come in, they'll have all their missed questions and the answers that they answered. And then that's when they'll decide if they want to challenge, and then
Right.
John will get involved. But that's all stuff I'll forward it all to you guys today.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Well, are you going to notify those that may be eligible early on, or I guess we don't know if they're.
We will do that
I don't know the
outreach.
situation, but
We will do that outreach.
it would make sense if
Yeah,
they
of course.
failed and they would know that there is another one coming up. They
Absolutely,
preclude a challenge.
of course. We will.
True. It might convince them that maybe it's, maybe they just say, well, as long as I know there's another exam on the old MCP, it might be okay, I'll just take it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely do that outreach. Makes sense. Okay, let's see, I think.
Before we move on, I just had two comments. The psychometrician is not until the end of the process after we have all the questions written and put together the test. So we can work without them for a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah, and secondly, I think the committee should put together a reoccurring meeting and start working on this
Yes.
in January. Really, maybe every 2-hour sessions every 2 or 3 weeks, virtual.
Yeah,
I think, once a month is not going to be enough for what we have to do. I think long sessions, like 4 hours or all day, are just too tiring.
Mhm.
So, I think we should find a reoccurring time and date for the committee and schedule it and get it on the books and, do a lot in the first few months of
so that sounds
year.
great.
And not everyone has to attend the meetings. from the committee,
Absolutely.
so.
So I think that's exactly why it was designed this way, that it's not, otherwise it becomes just like now we've got the full,
Yeah.
now it's become like part of the board meeting. So I would suggest that Gail and David, you guys get together, arrive at a schedule that you can present, send us an email, send the board an email, and happy to get going.
Yeah, I was going to suggest we even have a meeting again in December to lay out what our plans are in terms of the agenda overall to get stuff done, like a
Yeah,
schedule.
that's fine.
And
So-
we can establish a reoccurring date and time.
Yep. Okay, so who's
I don't
gonna
know if we
take the
want
lead
to send
on
that now, or we send an email out to the to just the exam committee. We don't need to spend a lot of time talking about it now, but maybe I could just send out an email to the exam committee.
Yeah,
Yeah, with some proposed dates and
so
times.
Gail, why don't you send exactly proposed dates? And then we can do some work, and then we can report back at the full meeting in January.
Yes, and if Matt could just send me the list of the way as it currently stands, the members of the exam committee, and that would include obviously you guys and John and
Paul.
Chris.
And Chris.
Chris,
Yeah,
Chris is the most important person. If we don't have Chris, we can't actually do any work.
There you go. Yeah, so we can do that, Gail, but just so you know, the email that I sent out on Thursday, November 9 at 11:26 a.m. lists everybody, and we just need to add Paul.
Oh, okay. All right, that's
Okay.
fine. Yep, just wanted to make sure I had them. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I think item 13, we're getting there. Regulations Committee report out. Long story short, the red line strikeout will be going out. I encourage you to please open the file, take a look, and I even more so encourage you to think about getting together in December so we can kind of have an idea of like, okay, this looks like what I was envisioning, or, oh, wait a minute, what happened to all my comments? I think that would be a really good idea to kind of get started on that. So you have our commitment. We'll issue the red line strikeout right after this meeting, might as well. I haven't done eyeballs on it, but that's okay. Let's just go, right? So
And that's like moving at lightning speed.
seize the moment. So we'll do that. Okay, anything else? And then, again, the commitment for December, just to have a virtual and start just jumping in.
So with sending out the red line strikeout, are we gonna be sort of canvassing for dates as well, just to keep it moving, or?
Yeah, I think we'll send the dates. Maybe we can identify some dates as we send this red line strikeout. The question that I have, so it doesn't start getting messy, is whether we should have a SharePoint. How would that
Well, they
work?
wouldn't have access to our SharePoint.
So, because I know sometimes it's like, oh, version 1 versus file save as, and then circulate, and then, so I think document control is like super important for
I
me.
think
Maybe
having
a
somebody
Dropbox.
control it, and then we'll send our comments to that individual,
Okay.
whoever you want to designate.
I can date any revision, pick the file name, the date,
Okay,
and then the most current date would be the most current file. And then we
Okay.
go back to old version based on
okay.
the dates in the file.
So you are a QA/QC person.
I guess I.
That's what happens when you're good.
Because otherwise, I'm afraid we'd be overwriting each other's comments.
Yeah, that's the downside of SharePoint. You're right.
Yeah. And so I'd rather have Matt have the full collection and we all see the full collection and then say, oh, I like what that person said better than what I said, that kind of thing.
Okay. That sounds good. So we'll send that out after this meeting with some suggested dates to
Yeah.
get together.
Yeah, about a week or two to review it, and then we'll plan to meet in December. I do ask that you look at to make sure that, like Billy said, your comments and the general comments from the past are in there. Hopefully, based on your memory, some of it you might not remember, some you might.
Mhm.
And then whatever we are missing or need to revise or tweak, we can do that as a group.
Yeah, and I really want to also focus on anything from the new MCP. I know that's really separate and apart, but related regulations. But if there's anything that the new MCP says, and LSP shall, and if there's anything that you see that there's a point of coordination between the new MCP and this LSP board, I recognize they're two separate things altogether, but just keep an eye out for that. Okay, David, why don't you just recap and then somebody can make a motion and board action to adopt any actions from your
Sure,
continuing
the
education.
continuing ed committee met today. We approved one course, one individual course for an LSP, and then there was one reapproval. And the next meeting is in January.
Okay,
And I move to accept the recommendations of the Continuing Education Committee.
Second.
okay, so why don't we do all in favor? Aye. Any abstains? Any nays? Motion carries. Professional Conduct Committee, we typically have Jamie or Kirk, and I realize, sort of like,
Kirk's here.
Kirk's here.
I'm not sure if he was on when we were talking
yeah.
about it.
Were you on when we spoke about professional conduct?
Yeah.
Would you like to recap, sir? It's only a test.
Yeah. Wasn't much to recap. We didn't go over really anything.
Yeah, so from my purview, we received information on the first 05 case. There's a brief that is owed on our defense. We will be asking, AGO on behalf of the board will be asking for their 60-day deadline extension. The AGO will be working with us, and then we will be filing a brief. And now that we have a new board counsel, Attorney Muggio, he will be part of the CRTs. Recall that the regulations call for one attorney to be part of the CRT. So now we can start moving forward with those cases. And I think that was pretty much it. So with that, I need a motion to, do we have anything?
No, we don't need to have anything. We don't have anything.
Okay, so then we move forward. Personnel budget, we talked about our new hire. I want to tell you that There will be some decision with regards to the executive director in the next few weeks. The same goes for the chair. And FY 2024 budget status, we are still level funded, except for a few administrative expenses that include just transportation, et cetera. There's really nothing remarkable that has equated to any kind of drawdown in the budget. As David noted, the board is responsible for paying for the services of a psychometrician. So that will come at some point in time. But other than that, we're level funded. I want to talk to you about the environmental protection seat. It remains vacant. I received 2 fantastic resumes. The challenge is that they are both LSPs. And that, I don't mean that to say like it's a challenge that it's an LSP, but it's just that the statute is sort of handcuffing us from being able to advance these individuals. And the advancement means that we actually interview the 2 candidates and then select whichever person would be the best fit for this particular seat. So.
Are you saying that they couldn't be LSPs?
Correct, because recall that the seat that was vacated by David Listernick was a non-LSP seat, and the statute is very specific.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yes, I understand.
Yeah, so, you know, I've talked to the.
I'm sorry. I guess the question that I had, and I guess if they qualify as, you know, for environmental protection seat, does it matter that they are also an LSP?
It does matter.
Okay, thank you.
The statute is extremely, maybe we can probably pull it up at some point, but the statute is very specific as to the composition.
Yep.
With regards to how many LSPs, how many non-LSPs, et cetera. You know, there's like a union person, there's a petroleum person, there's an oil,
right. No, I understand.
hazardous materials person. So that's the challenge. So I've reached out to the LSPA. They're doing some advertising. I'm doing my own internal research and advertisement as well. And I just beg you to spread the word. We could really use another person that, you know, I think would be, you know, just to complement and also help out with quorum issues. You know, sometimes especially vacation time, it gets tough.
Would it be helpful to sort of contact things like the Massachusetts Council or the Conservation Commission group? And see
Yeah, I could talk to, I've talked to the MAC executive director also. So maybe I could, you know, Dot McGlincy, maybe I could talk to her again. She's wonderful.
No longer an LSP.
She's no longer an LSP, but she's busy too.
Yeah, no, I'm sure she won't do it. But I guess it's really a challenge because for someone to be qualified by the regulation, but also, or the enabling legislation, but also have the knowledge, you know, is a challenge, I think. Really.
theoretically, that's not required by the regulations.
Yeah.
Except for the hydrogeologist position. It's the only one that states that role needs to be someone familiar with the MCP. The other non-LSP roles don't say that.
Right.
But
Right,
I was going to say, but the Mass Commission of Conservation, I mean, maybe some of those members, not the people that are in charge necessarily because they are busy, but maybe some Conservation Commission person would be willing to, or I don't know, Mass Audubon, you know, just get something out there to those groups.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the reservations, you know, the trustees of the reservations, things like that. So
Yeah.
I think we kind of just put it out there kind of passively. I think it's time for us to be a little bit more active. So I will be doing my part to cut and paste this announcement and spread it amongst my peers and others. So just to let you know, but we did receive 2 really good resumes. It was just like, oh, just we're challenged because of the qualifications, which, you know, some individuals want to ensure that the perception is that it's not skewed one way or another. So, okay, so that brings us, any questions though? We're good. Okay. Any questions from the public? No?
No.
Okay. That brings us to legislative affairs. I just wanted to, not a lot to say about that here, in terms of one way or another. I just wanted to acknowledge, and I believe that I forwarded this email that came in from the LSP Association. It was dated November 7, 2023, titled Opposition to House 782 and Senate 545, an act relative to the Board of Registration of Hazardous Waste Site Cleanups. And the punchline to that had to do with the association expressed opposition to these potential proposals. And I guess not to speak for the association, going strictly by the letter, they have expressed opposition of this bill in previous legislative sessions. They articulate all the reasons why they expressed opposition. And I just wanted to let you know that this went to our Undersecretary Stephanie Cooper, myself. We wanted to ensure that you had copies of the House and the Senate draft document. Matt sent that out. And I just wanted to tell you that this language, the Environmental Committee is currently reviewing the legislation and any testimony they received on the legislation. And over the next few weeks and months, they will decide if the bill should be reported favorably and then keeps moving further down the legislative review process, or if it's sent down to study and the legislature will end up considering the bill for the current legislative session. It's been out for a while, 6 years, 3 legislative cycles, and nothing has happened. But I just wanted for you to understand that we received a copy, the board did, and as board members, you should be apprised of that.
I appreciate the LSPA's firm opposition to it, because I have a special interest because I'm embarrassed to say both the senator and the representative of mine. And I have spoken to both of them.
Yeah.
Hey, it's worse. The senator's father lives across the street from me in Weymouth.
Yeah.
So, but my question to you, Millie, is: are we prohibited from writing comments, basically not lobbying our legislature, but writing to our legislators to comment?
So I think it's one that I can tell you the DEP posture. I maybe translate that to the board. Often we have a legislative liaison that's tracking these particular proposals. That's how Courtney weighed in. She is tracking where this is going, but the board is not per se writing anything, putting anything in writing. However, if there is opportunity, or if we do get an incoming call from, say, like in this case, it's Honorable Rebecca Rush, the Senate Chair, or Honorable David Cahill from the House, or any of the, Rep. DeCoste, Senator O'Connor, if they have questions, I think the board would be amenable to talk about what we do, our composition, how we, why it is that we have the representation we have at the table.
Do you believe it's?
Well, Millie, I meant personally. Are we prohibited from personally contacting somebody?
Yeah, same
I don't
question.
think so. No.
You are not prohibited whatsoever. You can exercise your right as a tax-paying citizen, so you can do your thing.
Okay.
I just don't think that officially the board is any, our posture right now is that we're watching it, and it will be our responsibility to inform you.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm not saying I do it. I just wanted to know if it gets further, I would feel that I would want to.
Of course. Yeah, that sounds good. I don't have anything more in front of me to share with you, but I want to say again, thank you so much for a wonderful year. You guys have been amazing. A lot of really good work, and I know that there's a lot of work down the road. So I just want to again express my best, sincere thank you, and looking forward to our next meeting, January 9. There'll be some traction in December. And with that, I would like to adjourn this meeting at 12:04.
Any questions from the public?
Any questions from the public?
Nope.
Okay, so
Excellent.
meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
All right,
Bye,
bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Matt, what did you say?